All right, moms with swords. Wow. Okay, I just have to say this. Y'all have heard me say this before. I need y'all just to look around, look at all your friends that are not here yet, or maybe not coming. I just want you to know the biggest thing I hear every session is, Joy, we want more weeks. Give us 12 weeks. Everybody look around. Everybody look around. Joy, we want 12 weeks. It's too short. How many of you here have been here every week? Oh my gosh, look at Joe. You've been here every week. That is amazing. Literally, it's hilarious. We had one lady last week. I hope she came back. Jenny, did your friend come back? You came back. You came back. Yay. I didn't scare her away. It was her first week last week. Is there anybody that this is your first week? Your second week? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, well, I know it's cold outside. I know your mom, so I know by about 9:45, 9:50, people will be rolling in, so it's totally fine. But we're gonna go ahead and start because we're live. A lot to get through. Y'all, we only have 2 weeks left, this week and next week. And then we will take our break until February, and then we will be back in February, which will be amazing, for our spring session. So y'all go ahead and start thinking about that, and keep up social media. We'll put all the stuff there. All right, we do have, if you have not picked up your amazing new merchandise, it's out there ready for you to be picked up. If your friend, again, we are going to refurbish it if you don't pick it up. So if you know somebody that has bought something that they need you to pick it up, make sure you grab it for them or tell them to grab it, because we're gonna repurpose it, and because we've got lots of people that didn't order, so we're gonna let them get it. So, and we do have extra out there if you've checked. If you didn't get one, and we have, I think we have something of everything. So if you didn't order and you want something, there is stuff out there. So make sure you check that out. I think that really is all about registration stuff. Let me just talk a little bit about Katia and Young Lives. Thank you guys. The stuff is coming in. As you know, our partnership with Young Lives, we are going to be doing this through next week, and then we are done. Oh, Katia is here. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, y'all don't need to hear from me. Katia, come up here. Talk to these sweet mamas, y'all. This is Katia. Oh, she's freezing. Here, I think this is on, Katia.
I love the merch.
Oh, you did? Well, yeah. Gotta get you one.
I gotta give you some. Hi. Hi.
Talk about your women and our partnership and what you need. Because do you need any notes?
Do I?
You know all we're doing. Don't you know what we're doing for y'all? But if you don't,
just in case, let's operate in order. Okay. Hi, ladies. How are y'all doing? I'm so cold, y'all. I mean, overnight, right? It was like hot one day, then we woke up the next and it was freezing. And I'm getting over something, so I think my body is still trying to regulate. But I'm really happy to be here. I miss y'all so much. Like, y'all have no idea. And I hope your small groups and all that stuff has been great and has been life-giving to all of you guys. I'm just going to share a little bit. This year, we've had 12 girls that have been totally consistent, coming to everything. Babies are thriving. Girls are back in school. Support has been amazing. And honestly, y'all, I really have y'all to thank, because some of you guys have called me and just like, I have this, I have that. I'm going to drop it off. What do you need? Y'all, thank y'all so much. Y'all have really been amazing. But this year, we are we're doing 48 gift cards at $25 a piece, and we have received 9 gift cards as of Wednesday. If you don't know, for Christmas, we normally get their wish list and we let them we shop for them. But I guess the past year or so, we decided we want to give them more ownership of that, right? We want them to be proud of going out and shopping for their babies. There is something to be said about you as the mom, you as the parents, being able to provide those things for your kids, and we don't want to take that from them. And so we're going to use these gift cards. They don't have no money, y'all. They can't buy gifts, okay? So we're going to help them by providing the gift cards. Myself and some of the mentors are going to take them Christmas shopping, and then we're going to come back to my house and have a gift wrapping party and eat cookies and drink hot chocolate and do all the fun Christmas festive things. So this is where you come in. If you have not been able to give yet, we are still collecting gift cards. We would love your help. We have like a few pregnant mamas who need quite a few things, and so this will also help them prepare for their babies. We have 14 babies, and we need 84 gift cards at 25 each, and so far we've received 6 of those gift cards since as of Wednesday. The goal is to raise $3,300 this year, and we've only raised $375 so far. So if you're like, what in the world? Y'all, we're also raising money for camp. Is that part of this? I'm trying to think. Yeah, have we started talking about that yet? We'll do that in February. We're not talking about that yet. This is for Christmas. Rewind. This is for Christmas. You may bring your gift cards. We have a sign-up genius, which I saw, which was great. I don't know who created that, but genius. Sydney. Okay, love you, Sydney, wherever you are. Hey, girl. Hey, girl. She's so sweet. If you need anything, she and I kind of work together. You know, get with her. She'll get with me if you have any questions. If you don't have time, we have other options. Okay, so you may also bring checks and write them out to Moms with Swords. Moms with Swords will make sure that we get them. Okay, and they've been great with that. You can also bring cash. You can use Venmo, and we will get the gift cards from you. And like I said before, Sydney is our point of contact. And so if there are any like donations or you have questions about the event for the girls, let her know, and she'll make sure that I am aware of everything. Y'all be praying for our girls. We do this thing called Campaigners every other Sunday, which is Bible study for them, and we're campaigning for Christ type of thing. And it has been jam-packed. Like, the girls have been coming. They want to know about Jesus. I have 3 girls that want to get baptized. And yes, I'm so thankful. So y'all, please pray, because the distractions are real, okay? And so just pray that God has already gripped their heart. Just pray that they stay on that path, and that God gives us what we need to guide and just lead them and disciple them well. All right, I love y'all. So good to see y'all. Y'all look so good in your shirts.
We love Katia. So now this is your time, moms. If you have any questions or want to, or you just want to just ask anything about Young Lives, Katia will be here. So y'all take advantage of her being here, because she is like, you're on full time now at Young Life. She's full-time staff, so that's why she can't come. So we're hoping that she's going to be able to come to our Christmas party and bring some of those mamas, because it's if you've never met them, it's just so precious. And I mean, listen, I'm such a baby hog, and they're teenagers, right? So they're like, here, have my child. So you can get your baby fix all you want. So I'm hoping they can come to our Christmas party. But yes, I know and I do think, Katia, I think we have raised more. Right, Andrea? Yes, Andrea's got to check. But I do think we've raised more. But Cindy is going to be back there taking your gift cards. And like several of you have written a check to Moms with Swords and just put Young Life in the thingamajiggy. And don't forget, if you're in a small group, I know so many of you have been bringing it, we do want to get each of these moms a care basket. So there is, in the middle is the list of what you're going to be bringing. We want to bless the moms. We've got these really great Christmas bags. I showed them last week. We're going to stick all this stuff in there, and they're each going to get one. We're actually going to be doing that next week here so you guys know my husband's here today, which I'm so excited about. And then my 3, he is not very excited, but I'm excited. Our 3 kids are going to be here next week. I wanted us all together, but of course, he had some big client, something I can't miss. I'm like, seriously, tell them you have to go do ministry. but that doesn't work in corporate America. So he's here, but the kids are going to be here next week. And we're going to be packing those bags next week. So even if you are not in a small group, and you want to bring some of that stuff. And like I said last week, listen, I know there's so many places that we are needing to give hurricane help, relief. So we want you to feel prompted by the Spirit, not pressured by moms with swords, okay? So never, ever, God's gonna, listen, we're walking in faith in a lot of things these days. God's gonna provide for these mamas. I'm not worried. So if Esther, for such a time as this, if it's you, great. If it's not, somebody else will raise up. God will raise somebody else up and we'll do it. So we want the opportunity for Moms with Swords. We are going to give and we're going to take care of these women. But we want you to feel led by the Spirit on what you do for these mamas. So we just are running out of time for you if you want to bring stuff. So definitely next week will be the last week because we're not going to be here anymore after next week. So pray about that and help us any way you can. All right, I think that is it. 2 more weeks left. I'm really excited about today. My husband nobody has ever met Todd, has ever heard from Todd. You've only heard me talk about Todd. Please don't tell him any of the bad stuff I've said. Our daughters are watching. They're like, oh my gosh, Dad is coming. So they are watching. Hi, Sydney and Sophie. They're watching live because they want to see their dad up here on stage, which he hates. So I am an extrovert. Actually, people think I'm an extrovert. I'm really not. I do because the Lord I need to be for the ministry that God's called me to, but I'm actually not very social. Todd is like, he actually can be more social than me. He just doesn't like people. I do like people. So he had asked when he pulled up, he's like, where's my reserved parking space? And where's my green room? I'm like, babe. And once you meet him and you hear from him, you're going to know his humor. So we've been married. Babe, 28? No, it's going to be 29 this year. Okay, so I never remember. So we'll be married 29 years, November 18th or 19th? 18th. Julie knew that. Oh my gosh, I'm so old. November 18th, it'll be, and y'all, guess what? Could you guess where I would want to go for our anniversary? Okay, rodeo or Disney. Yes, you are right. But there's another place that encompasses all of that. Ah! Who said that? Cindy. What'd you say? Dollywood. I'm going to Dollywood. Yay! He actually, to his defense, he tried to take me there last year, and I don't like to leave Paulding County. I don't really. Oh, she needs to go to the rodeo. That'd make her happy. I don't like to leave Paulding County. So last year, and we had softball. And so I was like, no, I don't want to miss. So this year, y'all, we're going to go celebrate our 29th anniversary at Dollywood. And I'm so excited. So if you've been, make sure you tell us all the places to go. Todd's Mr. Spreadsheet. So I'm sure he's already got a spreadsheet and it'll interfere with his spreadsheet, but I will put it on the spreadsheet. So if you have any great things. So y'all welcome. I'm going to pray, babe, when you get up here. You come up here. This is my husband, Todd. He's going to kill me. I'm going to pray, and then I'm excited about our conversation. So would you stand as we do every week? No different. Amanda, yay. We're going to pray us into this day. So Jesus, Lord, we thank you, God. Thank you for this weather. Thank you for no rain. God, thank you for the beauty of the sun and just the gift of life that we get in this day. God, this is the day you've made. So, God, I just pray that you would just, Father, be over this time. Lord, we don't want to say anything you don't want us to say. God, this is continuing on this whole theme of being entwined, God. And I just pray that these moms, God, would take something out of our conversation, God, of just how our family, we try to stay entwined, God, and we'd be honest about our entanglements, God, as we are still trying to work through keeping ourselves from being entangled. God, I just pray you would just be over this time. God, Spirit of the living God, you have been so good to just show up at every Thursday. God, you've been so powerfully moving. And so I just believe today is going to be just not the same. You're going to move powerfully. So God, let these moms take away. God, may they just shake off what they don't need to know. And God, there's no condemnation, no shame. Devil, you are not allowed in this space, in these moms' minds. God, I pray distractions would be ceasing in the name of Jesus. And God, I just pray again, every mom, something would fall on them that they need to hear from you, not from us, but from you. So speak through us and to us today in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. All right. Is it on? Oh, yeah, you're on. You're on. Yay, babe. All right. So this is our little family that you're gonna see the rest of them next week. I said a little bit about me and Todd. He's normally at work on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but he was able to come today. So, babe, so glad you're here. It's funny, I told him, I was like, babe, he's like, okay, he has to mark, his calls. When can I leave? When do I need to be there? And I'm like, well, you guys are so, I've noticed whenever we have men, we've had several men come through Moms with Swords, never Todd, but several men, and I always get such great feedback from you. You guys love to have a male perspective, when it comes to mothering. And so I thought, wow, that'll be a really good thought just to have you here, babe. Just a couple things I just was thinking about before we jump into our questions. And we're gonna have a question and answer. We're gonna save some time for you guys to ask some questions if we don't talk about something that you have a thought about. Our whole theme for Moms with Swords this session has been Psalm 27:14, just being entwined. And we've really been focusing on the mom, right? Here's what I've learned. Don't give up. Don't be impatient. This puzzle is going to come together. God's working all things out for the good of our children and our families. Be brave, courageous, never lose hope. Keep on waiting, for he'll never be disappointed. Like, it's just been our theme. God's going to come through, right? And we've been focusing on the mom. Well, today, in these next 2 weeks, I really want us to shift to the children. We start with the mom, right? We've been seeing that these last few weeks. Start with the mom, but this has been just a mantra for our family, Deuteronomy 6:4-9. It's been in my mothering, it's been in our home. I wanted to teach on this session, but the Lord, it wasn't for this session, so I've brought it into some teachings, but next session I really want to hone in on this some. But this is more our mandate from heaven, our charge, focusing on our children. Listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord. And I just want you to see these. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you are at home and when you're on the road and when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorpost of your house and gates. You see that it starts with you. It starts with you, which is where we've been living for the past 6 weeks. You, mom, you have got to love the Lord. Think about a sports team that you're crazy about in your home. Todd is a Tennessee fan. He's from Tennessee. So Tennessee has been I've told you, Todd doesn't get excited about many things. I think maybe I've seen him, maybe one of Sydney's Grand Slam moments, he has stood up and gone. And that's it. I, on the other hand, am going berserk. Todd does not get excited about much, but when Tennessee is on, he gets, when they lost, babe. To who did they lose to that you were very upset about?
We don't talk about that.
But that is so if you're a part of our family, Tennessee's a big deal. And so, when you and your kids probably know that you're a diehard sports fan, right? They've watched you be passionate and enthusiastic about that sports team. Are your kids seeing you be that passionate about the things of God? Are they seeing you? Are they seeing you commit yourself to the commands of the Lord, to love him with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, right? Did you know that, I love research. More than 90% of parents don't have a plan for their child's spiritual development. Barna says they outsource the task. Thus, Moms with Swords. that will not be said of us. We will not be in those statistics. We are going to love the Lord our God. We're going to commit. Our kids are going to know that I might be crazy about Tennessee or Georgia or Alabama or whatever, but they're going to see me go just as crazy about the things of God. When God does something, we're going to celebrate it big in our house. So I hope that you see that in us. Todd and I, we've dealt with many snares in our parenting. Our children are older, so we've had a little bit of a time to see some snares. But I really believe God has allowed this. This has like been our family mantra. This is really, we're seeing the fruit of this in our family. We've messed up. We've not done really all the times. We've not done what we should have done. But because this has been something in the forefront of our minds, we're really seeing God. We're seeing our kids love the Lord, their God, because it's now about them and their journey. So I hope you see some of that through the thread of this conversation. So Todd, we're going to open up with just questioning you. We hope you see the rhythms in our parenting, learn from our entanglements, please. And there's maybe some things that you're going to want to implement. So, babe, how do you believe a wife can best support, and go ahead and tell them what you want to say. How do you think a wife can best support a husband's godly leadership? Go ahead, say it. They're going to.
I probably should say two things. One, we got to set expectations, right?
Okay.
Right. So you've met my wife, full of energy, passion, exciting. Remember, opposites attract. So set that up. And number two, you did tell me about a few questions that would be coming today.
Yes.
What would I say? And as I told you, it doesn't matter when the lights are on. I'm not sure what's coming out of my mouth. So the views are my own. They don't necessarily express the views of Moms of Swords or its leadership. So, right? Let's just be clear. All right. So how can you best support it? Look, there's the obvious things, right? Prayer. I think there's a later question about. It's a popular book, right? This idea of respect and love, and I understand it's a two-way street, but just I think in general, just the love and support, the prayer. This is in a Christian context, right? Wasn't that the question?
Yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah, a godly leadership. Before we'll get to when they're a non-believer.
Yeah, just look, men crave respect, and so even in the little ways, showing that respect, and just encouraging them, letting them know you're praying for them, even if they're not a believer, right? It may not impact them as well, but knowing my wife in a situation that I might be dealing with at work, especially a meeting that I know is tough, knowing that she's praying for me, it seems small, but it resonates.
Yeah. So if they're not, what would you say to the mom because I know several of our moms don't have believing husbands. Like you had some good things when we were talking about this yesterday. What were some of the things you think they can do for a non-believer husband? How can they submit?
So you're asking in that. Okay.
Support.
Yeah, so it was interesting. She mentioned one of the questions would probably be about this and the idea of submission, which the timing was hilarious because this past Sunday, so with Andrea's husband and a guy named Mikey Canup,
Heather Canup's
husband, we lead a small young men's Bible study, I think 17 to 20-ish, and we happen to be in Ephesians 5, and then Ephesians 5 is about this idea of submission. And we were excited to talk about it because our fear is, and expectation was, they think of this idea of submission through the lens of the world, being young men, which is, I'm a guy, I lord this over people. And that's what I was expecting going in. So one, I was super encouraged because we were talking about this idea more from the men's view, which is, it's servant leadership, right? That's what the Lord teaches us. And so as men, if we're making decisions out of what's best for her, it's pretty easy. And I was super encouraged that that's how they think. So we spent 30 minutes digging that. Was exciting. So coming back to the female side of it, look, that's a tough one. So I'll just tell you, I believe very strongly in what's in the Word. So I believe whether he's a believer or not, the Lord commands the woman to submission. Don't freak out. But in the right context. So it clearly says, as unto the Lord, right? So you're not submitting because of the husband. You're submitting to the Lord. And I saw that in Joy's mom. Look, her husband wasn't a believer, but she practiced biblical submission, and what it did in their marriage and ultimately led him to become a believer was fantastic. And that's just somebody just outside watching it. But with that said, it is not an excuse to bypass what's not happening. So if your husband is an unbeliever, unfortunately, what does that mean? You have to slide up in the spiritual context of that, which is take your kids to church, teach them how to pray. Yeah, they're not getting it from their dad. I'm sorry, I hate it. It shouldn't be on you. It's not supposed to be on you, but it is. And what unfortunately I see sometimes is, well, I'm submitting. He doesn't want to go to church, so therefore I'm not going to go to church.
Yeah.
That's just not a good idea. You do have to fill that role. Unfortunately, you do have to step up. And so I would encourage you in that. And I'm telling you, I don't know too many husbands long term. If you are not condemning them, if you are loving them and submitting them, but you're practicing your faith in a leadership role, I believe in most cases over time, the Lord's going to honor that and that'll break that down. Amen. And I think you'll find that they'll, just like your dad, eventually they'll come around. That's just what I believe.
Love that, babe. Okay, babe, is there anything you would change in the way you parented our 3 kids, in the way we parented them, because we are one?
Right. 1.5, but you know.
You're the better half.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty obvious.
Look, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. I think for me, so one of the positives and challenges is when you have a wife that is in ministry, very passionate. You were like off the charts intentional, which is a good thing. For me, that almost allowed, so like Joy's personality is, if she's into something, man, she's all in, right? And like she's going to go to the gym every day because she goes to the gym every day. Yeah. I'm more the personality, I went to the gym for a week, that's good. I fell off the wagon, I'll see you again in 3 months. That's me. So because of that, when she was highly intentional, the reality is, it, in some ways, it's like, oh, I'm intentional for a week. Okay, not as much. So I was more inconsistent. And that's something I regret if I look back. Like it worked out okay because you were so intentional, but I think I missed moments because I just took the easy route at times. And so that's a regret.
Yeah.
Look, there are things like I read in the Bible, we know the words so well at times, but it's also we kind of pick and choose what we want to follow at times. And so the word talks about not exasperating your children.
Yeah.
So I'm the one, look, I'm very old school. My parents were teachers, so I'm tough just naturally, and I'm very tough. And so there are times where I would tell you I exasperated my children because I'm more likely to get wound up and go at them real hard, real fast. And so there are times where I should have exhibited more patience. I should have been more instructional, but I mean, we all are going to look back and see that.
Yeah.
And so absolutely, right, there's things I could have done better.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, especially, I mean, I think for us to learn in their kids' personalities, like, and we're going to get to that a little bit later, but that, you know, both of us are at fault. You know, John William, Sydney, Sophie Kate, they're all so different. And so in the moment when you are wound up, it's hard to remember, oh, well, that's, John William needs this, and Sophie needs this, and Sydney needs this, you know. So I would concur with that for both of us. We are guilty of that. Babe, what do you hope your kids have learned from you as a dad? Let's start with the girls. What do you hope Sydney and Sophie Kate have learned from you as a dad?
Yeah, so for my girls, I was focused on, so again, Joy really poured well into them spiritually from the intentionalness. From the spiritual aspect, my focus was more on the whys behind a lot of stuff, like why is it important we go to church? Why is it important we tithe? I just thought it was important for them to have that foundation. And I also felt like, one thing I think we have to be careful with, if you are in a home where the husband is really intentional and the mom is very intentional, I always felt like because she was so intentional, I had to be careful, because I think sometimes as Christians, we can literally over-spiritualize everything, like, oh, you went to the bathroom. Well, let me tell you, no. I mean, sometimes you just go to the bathroom. And so,
Yeah.
And so I felt like I needed to be careful because I didn't want them to think everything I do has to be spiritual. So that I was intentional about, but the other part, for me, was a little bit more about the world. For my girls, so I'm very sarcastic if you knew me well, and so I was very like, hey, the world is not easy outside the church walls. It gets worse as you go in the corporate world or wherever you go into. And so my thing was, man, I needle my girls. I like harass them like crazy. Like, you got to be prepared to deal with boys, and they're not going to go easy on you. They're going to do this. And so my thing to them, you can ask them, is like, there's nothing some guy's going to say to you that I didn't say worse. And I know that sounds terrible, but it's in the right context and the right time, because I'm like, you need to be prepared for what's coming. And also, it was just in relationships and stuff. I was very honest with them about, guys are hunters. Like when you run into guys, you literally are a piece of meat. Sorry, that's how they look at you.
Yep.
And they're out to conquer you. And so let me tell you what that means. Let me tell you what's going on. Let me tell you why. Like I always tell them, it's like what you're experiencing with the guy is the best it's going to be while you're dating. That's kind of what happens, because once they capture their prey, they captured their prey. And so, and it was interesting because they started seeing these behaviors, like when a woman starts to think of the average guy is looking at me as prey, you see behavior, like it kind of highlights what's actually going on when they're taking action. So I've been very honest with my girls about how guys are. And the reason for that is then you can kind of transition into, and let me tell you how it should be.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what it'll look like when the right guy, and listen, I'm a guy. There were times in my life I absolutely treated women like prey. That's a guy issue that we need to deal with, what we're talking to these young men about in their Bible studies.
Yeah.
And so it's just being honest with them. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and make sure they understand what's coming at them in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll definitely hear, I mean, Sydney's like, I can't talk about Dad next week or I'm just going to cry the whole time. So Todd definitely, yeah, he is the funny one. He, Sophie Kate comes down, he's like, why do you have all that bronzer on your face? And she's like, oh, Dad, what do you think? What? But then they know how to be treated from their dad. They definitely do. What about John William? What do you want John William, my boy, who he's a little hard on?
Oh, please. I can't even say anything to him. She freaks out. He's the boy.
What do you hope John William has learned from you as a dad, babe?
Yeah, so this is interesting. She was in some ways just as intentional, but maybe less. And so a regret is I could have been more intentional with him along the way. With that said, I really felt like for him that in too many aspects of life, and this is cultural, guys are essentially encouraged to abdicate leadership in everything, right? He could do better in school, he chooses not to. And I could say, well, you can tell, like I listen to his friends and stuff, like they're kind of being encouraged to abdicate leadership, and they don't even know it. Like they're just doing less because that's what boys do now. And it's like, no, that's not what boys do, right? And so it hit me like a ton of bricks when he was probably, honestly, I don't remember. I'm going to say 4th, 5th grade. It's probably a little older. But anyway, we'll say young teen. So I'm in church, or I'm in a church meeting, and the nursery worker, the lady was talking about they couldn't get workers. Can't get anybody to work nurseries. They can't. So they were going to start having the youth do it because nobody will help. And so for some reason, that hit me like a ton of bricks because I'm like, okay, there are tons of people in the church, and the people aren't stepping up in leadership. And here I am harassing my son. They're looking for people to lead and do things, and we're not doing it. So, by the way, if you could think of anything in the church, I would be the worst possible person to pick. It's childcare. Like, I'm terrible. It's like anything but that. But anyway, I thought, okay, I'm gonna step up and volunteer, and I'm gonna have my son come along with me. And for me, that it started a pattern that I wish I would have done earlier, which is, let me show you how as men, it's not always like, it's not the construction project all the time. It's not I'm on the finance committee. Sometimes it means getting down in the places we don't want to go and leading by example where other people won't, and making sure, why are we doing this? Why are we helping? Why are we? So that was a miss for me early on, that I was thankful that I just happened to be sitting in that meeting, and I'm sure that was a God moment for me to say, you can't sit here and complain about leadership from the sidelines. You've got to step in. And for me, I think it was intentional. The Lord sent me in it wasn't the nursery, it was the young boys.
Weren't you fourth and fifth grade boys?
Third, fourth, because not my gifting. I'm very uncomfortable. But candidly, I got more out of it. I got more from them than, it was such a blessing. It was a blessing for him to hear the things he said.
Yeah.
I watched him in the classroom with them grow in his own leadership capacity. And anyway, so that was what I would tell you to do is, look for teaching him about leading, not just verbally, but like pointing to other men that are leading, and especially in capacities that aren't expected. Because everybody expects, sure, you're helping build, I don't know, the set for the Christmas play or whatever, and that's great. But there are ways that men can lead that are maybe unconventional.
Yeah. I think that was really important and really huge for him and John William. They did it together. So again, it wasn't just Todd, I'm going to go serve fourth. No, John William, you're going to come with me. I think that's a really important piece in our parenting, like for you, especially with you young moms. Like I remember like with the girls, we would go to, I can't remember the name, Miss Carol's
Women's ministry.
Cobb Street Ministries. Like I would take them, like we would go, like again, it's easy to write a check, right? Katia gets checks all the time. But what really boots on the ground, right? Really showing your kids like, no, we're gonna go serve together. You know, we're gonna go serve this homeless group together. We're gonna go serve these teen moms. We're gonna cook. I mean, I don't cook, so my girls didn't grow up with mom taking dinner to people, but mom could do other things, right? Whatever it is you're gifted at, like do that. So that was a really strong
I think the point there I would encourage, listen, I think consistency is key. Like it's one thing to say it's the mission trip, it's Thanksgiving, we're gonna sit, and that's important, right?
Yeah.
But that, in some ways for me, that's a little bit of an easy way out because, right, I mean, I'm gonna fly in, fly out on my daily feel-good mission. I felt like he needed to see consistency week after week, whether we want to or not. Like there's days we didn't want to get up and go, right? I mean, that's just natural. Whether we want to or not, whether we feel good or not, we need to be there and serve and lead day after day, not the feel-good moments once every quarter.
That's so good, babe. Okay, babe, as a dad, how do you feel like you've discipled the girls, which I guess we've kind of talked about that a little bit, but is there anything else like how you discipled John William differently than Sydney and Sophie? You specifically?
I think I kind of covered. I mean, I could have been more consistent. Obviously, we had devotions together.
Yeah.
We talked about the word. Could have been more consistent, much like out of my personality, right? Hey, we're really good for a week, and then the month goes by, right? And so that could have been better. But I'd really encourage you in the culture is today. So there's two things. One, in the culture is today is the leadership already talked about. And I know you know this, but I cannot tell you. I mean, just because I'm quiet, I'm an observer and a listener. And so being with my friend and being with my son and his friends, listening to their conversations, it was disheartening to hear the lack of leadership going on and them thinking it's okay. And they don't know that's what's going on, so that was disheartening. But the other thing is, I told you about the girls' conversation. I had the same conversation. So my son has a girlfriend, and I'm having the opposite conversation with him, right? Like, this is how your brain is wired. This is how you are probably thinking. This is how this young woman needs to be treated. You should, so it's at times probably very detailed, but I just think it's important, right? It's teaching him how to be a future husband and so on, and doing that at an early age.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that with the girls, you've definitely modeled how they should be treated. I mean, my girls have a really high standard, and they're very intentional with asking their dad, like, well, one of them for sure. Sydney's always like, is there a red flag, Dad? Do you have a red flag? Do you have a red flag? Sophie Kate's like, oh, I'm gonna let you hold up 50 red flags. I've got to decide if they're red flags or not. But yeah, I think you've really done a really good job. And we're going to talk about, the kids are specifically going to talk about dating, and you might have some questions about that with us up here, but we're going to talk about that next week. Babe, you being an introvert, more of an introvert, Todd's biggest phrase was, I don't need friends, I have you. I'm like, and I've adopted Andrea's phrase, I can't miss you if you don't leave. Because as he's gotten older, I've become more of his best friend.
Well, in my defense, like that movie Castaway, I'm like, the guys on the island, I'm like, I don't know why he left. Like, like they just ruined the movie for me. Like, he was doing good.
Okay, be honest, you'd want me with you.
Most of the time.
Oh.
Sometimes.
I'm like, okay. He's like getting up to go, like he ushers at church, and it's hilarious. Like, he has to be like 15 minutes earlier, and he's like, aren't y'all going with me? I'm like, no, we were all coming separate. We need to drive together as a family. I'm like, babe, we can have 2 separate cars. It's okay. Can't miss you if you don't leave. Okay, you being an introvert, how important, which I have seen you, like and it is, it's been for the sake of our kids, I will absolutely say, and again, many of you can say that, for the sake of my kids, I X, Y, and Z, right? Like, we do it, and we need to make sure, like Todd has been even saying, like, but you have definitely, specifically I know for the kids, you have put yourself in godly community, because again, You don't have to have all these friends, and I love that about you. But you have made sure you've surrounded yourself with godly community. How important is for you, and how can these women, these mamas, encourage their men to seek out godly community?
So let me start with what won't work. And this sounds terrible, but it's true. Had Joy pushed me to go into godly community, it would never have happened. It just,
'Cause he's
like
stubborn.
29 years of marriage, I don't care how she says it, I hear nag, 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 nag. It doesn't matter how she says it. And it doesn't matter if she tries to be clever, I'm not stupid, I'm like, okay.
I'm terrible.
You're trying to
being clever.
backdoor it, nice try. So that wasn't gonna happen. So for me, it was two things. One, again, this is just where the Lord's had me at, one was what we've already been talking about. It was just the conviction that the reality is, on some level, my son is gonna do what's been modeled. And so I gotta be thoughtful about that. Number two, now she didn't do this, it just happened, I believe from the Lord, frankly, is I do think about others just naturally, and so there were just men in my life that I knew needed to be engaged in men's ministry, which is hilarious, right? I don't need to be, but you need to be. And so when they would talk to me about the men's ministry or getting involved, I kind of knew they weren't going to go if I didn't go.
Yeah.
So those were my two catalysts, right? So I needed to get involved because, one, the Lord was convicting me, but two, I knew others wouldn't get involved. So that was important for me. So my point here is look, somewhat is the obvious. If your husband is like most of us and is not going to go, you got to find what motivates him. So obviously there's prayer, right? The Lord can move the heart. And I do believe, as I said, the Lord moved me in some capacity. And then the second is find those things that you know about your husband. And you can be a little covert about it. Like, had that not been the case, Joy's connected enough men in my life. She could have easily have said, hey, would you help me get him to these ministries? And they could have done it in ways I wouldn't have known about, which maybe you did, I don't know. And so I would tell you to go that way. But I will tell you, you are wasting your time. In fact, you're building a wall if you're trying to, it isn't going to happen. And you're just creating a wall for him. For most guys, you're just going to be stubborn about it. So you've got to do it through prayer. You got to let the Lord convict him. And the second way would be go through others to kind of create that encouragement that he probably doesn't realize is happening.
Yeah. Do you think it helped you that because, again, my mentors I definitely seek out mentorship and stuff. Do you think it helped you that I was putting myself in godly community? Do you think that kind of helped you? I know you're pretty stubborn.
Yeah,
You don't,
I'm pretty stubborn.
yeah. So, but maybe that'll help your husband. If he sees that you're doing all these things and everything, maybe that will help him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You know your husband. Everybody's different, so you have to be smart about what motivates him.
And let me just say this, since we're talking about it, y'all, please do not be deceived. The Bible is clear about church. It's clear. It's very clear. You need to go to church. I'm just going to say it. I hope you have your steel toe boots on. I'm sorry if I'm stepping on toes. And we live in a podcasting world where everybody's like, I'm just going to watch it. And I'm not saying that that's not fine, because there can be times when that's totally appropriate to do. But you need a body. You need to be surrounded by a body of believers. Todd and I both, we come from, that was our precious, Julie and I's mom. My mom, my daddy he was a great man. He didn't go to church. He didn't really, I'm saved in my own way. That's what he'd always tell you. I'm a good person. And he never fought, but my mama, y'all, she took us to church. She was in Bible studies. I remember walking in, her and her best friends around the Bible. I saw that modeled. Your kids are going to crave the culture you create, and what they see is important to you is probably going to be important to them. And some of you have asked, and my kids are going to talk about, Joy, why are your girls, how did they get so involved in a church so quick in college? Because it was a priority for our family. It was never an option. Church was never an option. John William, he's had lacrosse these last 2 Sundays, and he's at a 12 o'clock game, and Todd's like, so you're going to go to Sanctuary at 9:15? And even John William, he was like, no, I can't go this week, Daddy. I'm like, you see, and again, I'm not saying shame. Please don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm just saying it should be a priority. It should be a priority. It's not in your doing. You don't have to do that for God to love you. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But again, our kids, I believe, it has just been a routine that's been established in them because it's never been an option to not. And so they've seen him get involved with men, and listen, he is the most introverted person there. And if he can do it, I promise there's hope for your husband, right? And they've seen me do it. So I would tell you, even you come into Moms with Swords, like talk about what you learn here to your kids. Like let them know, like godly community, the enemy wants us to stay out of it. He wants us to stay out of it, which is why I love what he's doing on Sunday nights with these boys. Like you need community. So I'll just say that. Okay. I saved this last one. No, this is good. And I think you've already touched on this. You've modeling for John William in terms of being the spiritual leader of a future family. Do you have any more to say about the girls or anything else?
Remember, opposite attract. I never have anything more to say.
Okay, well, this is a big one. This was a lot of people's question. And this is going to help some of you a lot. Us disagreeing on how to handle a kid or situation, which we have definitely had. And mostly, I'm going to let Todd because he can speak so much better than me. We've definitely had our disagreements on how to deal. About Todd and I, some of you have a really hard husband, like he's really hard with your kids, and you're the really soft. Or maybe you're the really hard one, and that was how my mom was the authority, and my dad was the softie. Unfortunately for these 3 children in this picture, they have had 2 very hard parents. Like, it wasn't gonna work. Like, was never, empathy is, y'all know, it's very low for me. Sydney has been texting us all morning. She's got cramps, and oh my gosh. And so I'm like, oh my Lord, So, and he's just as bad. So we are working on our emotions, and we're letting them have emotions. But for the most part, our children were from both of us, guilty until proven innocent. Some of you, your baby would never do that. So our children had 2 very hard parents. So disagreeing on parenting, we never really, we were baby wise. I just thought that was just such a great, I'm predictable. Again, if you call me at 10 o'clock, you're gonna know where I'm at. Where am I gonna be? That at 10 o'clock at night, she said it the best. I'm in bed watching Reba. Yes, sister or mama's family, it's my new thing. I'm watching all the time now. But at 10 o'clock during the day, if I'm not subbing, I'm gonna be at the gym. Like, it's just, I'm a creature of habit. I love predictability. So baby-wise worked for us, okay? We never disagreed about how to parent the kids. But
I would say, we certainly didn't disagree. But we also, prior to having kids, we talked to couples that just based on what we were witnessing, like it looked like, hey, that's how we would want to parent. So we also asked a lot of questions.
Yes, for sure. But when it comes to disagreeing about parenting a certain child, that definitely happened. Yeah. Take it, honey. Bless her heart.
Yeah. That came up in our middle child. So our oldest, Sydney, is like Joy in a lot of ways.
Yeah. She's got the great parts
and
of
so
you,
coming up, she was easier in that she just leaned towards Joy. And so a lot of things with ministry and everything just clicked for you. She behaved, you didn't know it at the time, right? She behaved like you. She did things the way you would have done it.
She let me exasperate her.
Yeah, but so that just made it easy for her.
Yeah.
So when Sophie came along and came through, she's more like me in a lot of ways. And so what ended up happening is when Sophie was going through similar trials or not even trials necessarily, you don't necessarily appreciate when your second child comes along. You've got this playbook, right? Playbook, child development. Look, it worked perfect. Repeat. Child 2 doesn't work that way. And so child 2 was me. And so she was losing her mind because in her, and so what she was seeing is, you're not doing this, this isn't happening, et cetera. And what I was watching, and it just understandably just wasn't resonating, is she was trying to parent the way she would Sydney, and her expectations were to see certain behaviors that she wasn't going to see because that's not who Sophie is. And by the way, not all of it was wrong. Some of it was just, Sophie's fine with one friend. She doesn't need 10 friends. Sophie's fine in her room at night because she doesn't need to go out and hang out with people. She's not going to run. She's more like a guy, like somebody's going to have to pull her into ministry. She's not going to go seek it out. And so she's, again, learning and trying to operate. And so that created tension between them that I could feel. Yeah. And so there was two things in this one part we never talked about, but I was thinking about today that I think happened kind of for both of us. Number one is, I'm having to talk to her, like I'm listening to them having conversations, and it's going nowhere because they're doing this. They're missing each other. Yeah. And so I'm having to, after the conversation,
Sophie goes upstairs crying.
This is what she's hearing. This is because I'm having to say, look, I'm going to put myself in Sophie's shoes. This is what I heard, and this is how I think about what you said. And listen, that absolutely created tension in our marriage, and that, I'm making that sound too strong probably, but for her, I'm trying to be careful, but that's a little bit, it's almost like you're not doing a good job, you're not a good mom. And that's what she's hearing in the moment because she's frustrated. And so we went through some period of tension because I'm frustrated with her because I easily understand what's going on with Sophie. I don't understand why she can't understand. And I'm trying to put myself in her shoes.
He's a softie with Sophie.
More so probably because she's like me. But also I'm like, you're not getting it. Like what you're asking her to do is not important. Like there are some things that is, and I absolutely support you, but you need to hear it. That's number one. Number two, and this has happened, we've never talked about this, but I think in hindsight, the other thing I realized, think about it. When you're speaking to your child who is more like your spouse, and you are complaining about things, your spouse sees themselves as that child, so you're indirectly attacking them. And so I felt some of that. I didn't think about it in the moment, but I felt tense.
Sorry,
and I realized,
sorry.
But I'm also very laid back, so I got over fast. But in hindsight, and you did too, by the way, right? Because as I'm talking to her about what I'm seeing, she's hearing me essentially attack her. And so I don't think I appreciated it in the moment, but in hindsight, that was going on too. So we've got the tension of, hey, you're not understanding her, and what's underneath that we don't realize, we got the tension of, that's me you're attacking, and that's the problem. There's a problem in our marriage, and that's the enemy, by the way, right? Yeah. Enemy's there at all times. Yeah. I don't care how good a Christian you are, he's just waiting. Yeah. And so for us, it's like, hey, this is going on. She doesn't like you. She doesn't love you. You're 30 years into marriage, and now you're realizing. And so that created a season of tension. Yeah. It sounds worse than it was, but it was creating some underlying tension that we had to work through.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was a very hard season. Plus, Sophie, and she's going to talk about it a little bit later. I mean, Sophie was going through, like, you just would not know. I mean, people, again, which is why I never want you to think our family is perfect. Like, Sophie was she was battling depression. Like, we were walking through depression with her. And I remember there was one night she came home, and it was very, very, and you remember this night. She came home, she had worked at Chick-fil-A, and she got caught doing something, and we had to talk to her about it. And normally our kids, righteous, repentful, radical, right? Those are my 3 R's. Sophie Kate is our most repentful. I mean, I guess the Lord knew how she was going to be wired, that she would need that great I mean, she's just hugely repentful. And so most of the time before our kids will tell on themselves. Sydney is, and she's my kid that will tell me things. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't really want to know that. I'm sure all you have that. Sydney's come into my bedroom and confess things. I'm like, oh gosh, okay. Sophie, it would take her a little bit longer, but she was very just quick to repent. Well, this certain time we found out, and I mean, again, I told him, like Todd quickly, like, I'm going to go out, we're going to go after her. And now I'm like, we're going to go after her. And she's going to get it when she comes home. And it was that night when we confronted her, I was very aware in that moment that we were not fighting something. We were fighting someone. And I'm telling you, depression, I get, it is a mental, it can be very brain-oriented. But please don't only think that's what it is, because it's not. We were fighting a devil of darkness and depression that it was like a cloud. And I mean, when I would tell people that, they're like, "You're Sophie? Homecoming queen? Like beauty queen? Like Sophie?" Yes, yes. It was, and so that was during that season so Sophie was dealing with this, and then she had a mom trying to fit her into the Sydney mold in a lot of ways. I just didn't understand. So Todd was moms, let your husband parent. Trust that many would just bawl. Like, and again, this would always be when she'd go back upstairs. I'm like, ah! And then he's like getting on me like, "She tuned you out after 2 minutes, Joy. She tuned you out. You were going for 20. She tuned you out after 2." So it was a very...
Well, she's enough. She would do two things. She would either tune you out, or she's enough like me. She's very sarcastic and loves to push your buttons.
Yes.
So one of two
Yes.
things. So
She
she
always
would
did that.
either tune you out in 2 minutes because she just wasn't in the mood, or, and this is where your husband or you can be helpful, vice versa, she would be like, "I'm going to mess with Mom." And so she would intentionally, I mean, I
So
could watch
easily
it.
messed with.
She would intentionally, while she's trying to correct her and just push her buttons, wind her up. She's getting in tears, and I'm just like, she wasn't serious. She's just totally messing with you.
Yes.
But she couldn't. I was just like, oh.
I couldn't see it. So let your husband trust. And I get it's harder when they're not a believer. I get that. I mean, that is harder. But still trust God with your husband, Mom, right? Trust God with your husband. Trust God with your husband. I mean, I still, I will, because, I mean, Sophie's my kid that I have to think before I say anything. And Alex has told me, the greatest thing. Sophie Kate told me something amazing the other night at dinner. And I just was like, "Oh, okay. Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, inside I'm like, but I can show no emotion. Because she will use that against me. Literally. So he has helped me, gosh, so much. And, okay, dogging on Joy, let's say how I have helped you with John William. Honey.
I mean, it's basically opposite, right? He's more like her. So I'm 0 to 60 fast. So she's hard, I'm harder. And so, yes, I do the opposite of what we just talked about. So I go at him quick and hard, and she has to bring me off the edge.
Yes.
Because he gets so upset so fast. And I know, it's one of those things, I know it as it's coming out of my mouth, but I can't stop it. It's like, ah! And I'm just like, ah! And then now here's the sad part, and he would probably say this. What I struggled with, because I saw it, this is, again, we parent out of our personalities, so my stubbornness was, I would see it happening, and I would even see he would have to go to Mom, Joy, to kind of get to me, like, "Hey, you're so nuts right now, I got to speak to Mom to bring you off the edge," because our kids aren't stupid, right? They know what's going on. And so that's not good, right? That's a problem. And so that's something I'm doing. It's not fixed, believe me. It takes everything in me. And so that's something I'm struggling with. I see it. I got to fight my own stubbornness because he too many times has to come back through you because he's afraid or doesn't believe that I will hear him. Yeah. And that's a me issue. It's not on him. That's on me. And I'm still working on it, right?
Yes, and he doesn't understand John Williams is a little bit more sensitive than him. So I'm like, babe,
well, I have no feelings, so everybody's more sensitive.
Yeah, John Williams, he's the kind that you have to like, it's funny. I mean, John Williams, he's a lot like you. He's very, John Williams is he's had 2 sisters. So, and some of you have a son so it's made him so.
And he's Mama's boy.
I know, but I'm trying. But yes, he's definitely more sensitive. And Todd's just, he doesn't, I'm like, and John Williams is the kind, some of you can relate. You have a kid. You have to tell John William, John William, if we're going to do something for the day, I have to give John, I'm like, this is what we're going to do today, buddy. And once he knows it, then he's okay with it. But don't just yell at him for doing something that he didn't know about. I'm like, babe, prepare him. This is the expectation. You're not going to play your game in your room for 5 nights. And Todd's just like, well, you're playing your game. Why are you? And I'm like, did you tell him? It's like, no. I'm like, so we definitely help each other. Like with, you help me so much with Sophie, and I help him with John William. So I am some benefit to you.
This is random, but going back where somebody asked about things you would do differently. So I think we've done a good job at kind of what I'll call big moments of really making sure we are doing correction through the Word. Yeah. And so I'm going to use an example for me personally. Listen, however tough I think I am, my parents were 10 times. They were school teachers, nothing's going by them. And I'm very appreciative of that as an adult. Yeah. With that said, I think it was 5th grade, and I thought I was cool, 5th grade. I'm learning all these new curse words. And I was cursing like a sailor. 5th grade, because I learned new curse words, so I'm cool, right? And I can't remember what happened, but somehow I wrote this note full of curse words. My teacher catches it, and it gets back to my parents. So I'm expecting they're literally going to kill me. Like, I'm going to be in a grave somewhere. This is not going to go well. So that's what I'm preparing for. So they bring me in the room, and by the way, people there back then actually spanked kids, believe it or not. And so I was also expecting that until I, was bleeding or something. So anyway, they sit me down. I'm prepared for the worst. And my dad specifically pulled out the Bible and was talking to me about blessings and curse out of your mouth. He was talking to me about all the correction was specifically through the Word. Now listen, I'm not here to if you curse or not, that's not my point. That was important for us in the moment. And so after that, I can tell you, had they beat me and done everything, I would have gone right back. Nothing would have changed. But there was something about that moment that, sorry, I do get emotional at times. I know. There was something about that moment. I can tell you from the moment they had that conversation to today, so that would be 40 years later or 45 years later, I cannot curse. Like, even if you're look, sometimes, by the way, this is not about cursing. I'm just giving you my point about them instructing me through the Word. If if my kids say, oh, come on, Dad, that would be funny from you to say the most easy curse word you could think of. Something in me just goes, you cannot. And so that,
for Mom and Dad.
My point being, if you're like me at times and you're practical, you just want to go, 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 I would tell you, even in those moments, if you will correct them through the Word in a gentle way,
yeah, it makes a difference.
It's impactful.
Obviously makes a difference. There are tears coming out of Todd Chambly's mouth. Oh, awesome. Okay, well now I want to open it up. Joy, will you grab the mic? And I want you guys to ask any questions that you have for Todd, for us, however you want to do it. If anybody has a question, Joy's going to play Vanna White and walk around with a microphone. One in the back, Joy. There you go.
Yep.
Do you guys have any resources that you really liked for discipling your children as far as like a daily devotional or things like that?
Do you have time? Girl, yes. And I'll make sure we bring, yes, so many. We definitely, oh gosh, now I can't think of, I see.
My resource was Joy Lagone Channel.
Yes, we definitely, I can give you some list. Yeah, we definitely went through many devotions. We would do it with them until one of my mentors would say, Joy, they need to feed themselves. So when they were old enough to feed themselves, then we'd let them go upstairs and do it, and then we'd come down and talk about it. But yes, I've got many. God and me, that's it. God, if you have God and me, and there are all different ages. Like I had John William. I've got him like 3 to 5, and then there's like 6 to 10. Like they have all different ages. But God and me was definitely one that we did with all of the kids, and I have saved all of them in their little scribble scrabble handwriting. So yes, I will get you some great ones.
Hi. We were talking about going to church and how we need to go to church, and it was important when I was younger. My mom was the spiritual leader. My father wasn't there yet. So my mom was always the one that drug all of us, all 4 of us, and I was such a big impression on me. We always grew up in the Word. Oddly enough, I'm married, and my husband says he's a believer. However, I'm the spiritual leader in our home. I had prayed for him for about 12 years, and long story short, we were supposed to get a divorce, but the Lord changed his heart, and we got back together. We were separated for 4 months. But my question is, he still gives my children, who I put time in to do devotions with and to speak the word over, and I make them read the word out loud so it's in their voice and in their minds. We pray over them. I pray over them every morning before school. But he gives them the option to go to church, and I don't think it's an option. I want, so it's hard because we have that disconnect. So I guess my question is, it is a priority for me. It's always been in my life, but we come from different backgrounds, and he gives them the option. I'm kind of at a loss.
What do you think, babe?
That's a tough one for me. So one, and I'm sure you've probably already done this, but I'm thinking for your kids, it's helpful to make sure they understand why. Like sometimes as a parent, you just want to say you're going, right? And not that you necessarily owe that in all things, but I think really make sure they understand the importance of community and why you go. Just, again, to kind of set that stage a little bit. And then, look, it's not, to be honest, as parents, a little bit of guilt, right? Like, hey, I'm going, I'd really appreciate if you go with me. I would lean towards erring on the side of, like, making them go, basically, just because I feel it's so important. Yeah, and that's where, as I went to earlier, like, I do think, yes, you have to submit to the husband, but when it comes to spirit, if they're not doing it, then you're filling that gap. And so we don't have that dynamic. I've not been around it, so it's hard for me to fully speak into that. But absent things I don't understand or appreciate, I lean towards really pushing the bound, like making them go, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's, how old are they? Are they? Okay, yeah, for sure. Like, so they're not driving or anything. I just think, I mean, we're trusting God here, right? And we're not shaming them, but like he said, I just think we're just going to go. And if your husband makes it an option, I just think they should see that's really not an option.
Yeah, again, I stress the gentleness just because they're getting an opposite voice in the house. Like, it's got to be a little encouraging. Like, hey, it's important to me. I'd really appreciate you to go. This is why it's so important for you. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I get that, yeah.
Right, and kids see that.
Yeah.
And what it also may force, unfortunately, is you're probably going to have to put more emphasis than you might otherwise. Is like, you might be at a church that really resonates with your kids, that may not feed you as much as you would want, but for this season, that's what you got.
I can get it somewhere.
Yeah,
That's right.
like absolutely.
Go
Especially
where
if you're a
they'll go.
strong believer, like there are some churches that they're just built better for kids.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely find that.
Yes, for sure. Love that.
You don't get any questions.
Who is that?
Oh, yes, we do, Tom.
Do I get to reject certain questions?
Yes.
Hey there. What are some of the things that y'all have done in your marriage to kind of be a reflection for your children of how to put God at the center of your marriage, and to like prioritize that relationship so they can see the importance of that?
So there's the obvious, right? We go to church together, we pray together, read the Bible. It's all the obvious stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it was important in all phases of our marriage. Is this PG-13 crowd?
Yes.
Okay.
They're used to me,
Like,
honey.
so we've been very open, I'm trying to think how to phrase this.
Oh, no.
Go ahead, Tom.
We're
do
still
it.
very intimate
It's
late
okay,
into our
say it.
marriage. There we go. I couldn't think of the words. I thought it was important, like in all aspects, right? Even biblically, right? Like, hey, I thought it was important for them to see how I honor their mom, how I'm still very attracted to her. Like, I talked to my
Yes.
son about that. Like, this is an ongoing building relationship, and that is holy and pure. And the fact that we're intimate is holy and pure. And here's why it's different.
And our
than
kids will
what you
say
heard.
that. Like, Sydney will be like, I love that y'all still do it.
Yeah. But
I'm like, are you meaning because we're old?
right.
Yeah.
But like literally in everything. So in that sense, it's like, yeah, there's the obvious for our kids, the church, but I want them to see a healthy relationship covers the practical stuff, like how we manage our money. Like we talk about, we tithe this way and we give to these ministries for these reasons because it's important. So it's like not just the simple stuff, but it's like everything about your marriage because God created us to be one. and this is what that means. And so it's just going beyond the obvious.
And just being very, I mean, that's where I'm like, be open, be honest with your kids. Like, let them see, let them hear, right? Like, the world is saying a lot of crap, right? Let them hear you. I mean, you know, he'll say hilarious things, especially now that they're older. Like, I'm fixing to go jump on your mom. I mean, you know, I mean, oh no. I mean, come on, we're all married, we know. But I mean, that for my kids to hear, like, dad, like it's very open and funny and fun. And again, it shows them, I mean, and I will say too, for us, we, as our kids have gotten older, like we've moved from praying over our kids to praying for our kids. Because our kids are we've got 2 that are at home, right? John William is constantly here, not here, you know. So he and I are now praying for them. But we were very intentional about praying over them. Like, everybody downstairs at 7 o'clock. Like, and I just think that showed our children that we were one. We were one. So that was really it.
And real quick, Todd, one person just mentioned in the beginning when she first asked that question, you kind of brushed over the obvious things like, oh, pray for each other, da, 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 da. Go into some of those details on what may be obvious to you, but kind of emphasize a little bit about that if you would.
Yeah, so it was intentional that we would go to church together as a family, for example. It was intentional that they would pray together or know that we were praying for them. Like, just like things we could say to them, like, we prayed about that for you, or how did it go? We prayed about that for you. Because part of it is making sure they understand what you're doing. What am I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. I'm old. Jump in. Oh, yeah, reading the word together. You know, those kinds of things that people probably expect from the church. And so just, you know, again, trying to compass all parts of life.
Hi, my name is Vanessa. I have a similar situation where I'm a believer and my husband says he's a believer, but he doesn't walk like a believer. He and I are both, we were both parented by non-church parents. I mean, I would go to church, so my parents would go to church. I was raised in a Catholic background, and so was he. We went to, or I studied, or I went to school with multiple Catholic schools, and my husband didn't. He was public schooled. But anyway, so my children have questioned me recently. Mommy, like, they didn't even know that my parents were divorced. My parents have been divorced since I was 9. They tried to get back together several times, and I'm like, I can't. I mean, I left for college because it was like, this isn't working out. Like, why are you doing this to me? So they tried to get back together when I was 11 for some time, and then again when I was like 18, and then recently they've lived together in Tucker for some time, and I'm like, this is driving me bananas. But they're like roommates, you know, they are amicable, and they've known each other since they were 15. They were actually neighbors for some time. Like, my dad got the phone number off of the billboard of my grandfather's business to contact my mom. Like, they grew up on the same street. So anyway, long story short, my in-laws are married, but they have been like roommates. And they're like, they won't have pictures together or anything. And so being that we were married, or that my husband and I are married, and we come from very like confused parent backgrounds, like he's not understanding, why are your parents friends? They're divorced. And I did mention to him, my mom's sister is married to my dad's cousin. So we've always done Christmas and holidays and birthdays or whatever together with my dad, since he's, you know, part of, I guess, my uncle and my aunt's marriage, you know, like family. Anyway, so we come from 2 different cultures. I'm Hispanic, Asian descent, and he's just, you know, American, you know, like Caucasian and a little mix. But my kids, like my middle child asked me the other day, she's like, Mommy, are your parents divorced? And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of complicated because they're seeing something completely different. They're seeing my parents have tried to be friends, and then they are seeing something completely different on my in-laws. They're like, in-laws are never like together. We went to the pool with grandma and grandpa was not there. And so we both have like absent fathers, but my parents have tried to model more of a marriage than his parents. So what would you tell the children in this very difficult situation? Like, what would you say? I don't know,
I don't
so they're
think you
not so confused.
I don't think you say anything. I think you just model for them
Yeah.
what a healthy
Yeah.
marriage
Yeah.
looks like, what it looks like to have two parents that are wanting to follow after Jesus, right? And again, we don't have to do anything, y'all. Like it's not in our doing that your kids are going to produce. I mean, it's just in your being. So I just think you and your husband, the best thing y'all can do is model there, because I don't think your kids are old enough now to have those. I don't think you need to have a really intense conversation about the specifics with your children now, maybe when they're older, but I think the best thing for you guys to do now is just model, just show them what it looks like.
Hey, quick question. So how did you guys handle when your kids were approaching 18, either going off to college or staying home, with regards to church attendance? Because so my husband and I, our plan was, if you live in our house, you're going to church. And that was kind of what we pushed when our almost 22-year-old was getting older and getting ready to become an adult and do his thing. And not too far into it, I just began to be convicted, me personally, that maybe that wasn't the right thing, because I started to feel like I don't want to force him to go. He's an adult. He is living in our house, but he is an adult, and he's going to school and whatever. And I just felt like I didn't want to force him to go because I wanted him to want to go. So we decided my husband was not so much on board with it at first, but I just explained my heart. We prayed, and he agreed. And so fast forward, 3-4 years, we were having a conversation earlier this week, and I'm just kind of saying this based on her question a minute ago. I was asking him, so what are some things that, your dad and I did that was right? And one of the things he said was keeping us in church when we were younger, several other things, but he said, the fact that you guys didn't make me go to church when I didn't want to, I don't know, he said, I don't know if I would have wanted to come back. But you gave me the choice to make that own decision for myself. And he said, now he wants to be back. He had about a 3-year period. He didn't turn his faith, wasn't gone. He just wasn't making church and God a priority. How did you guys have because we kind of flipped, Eric and I, how we were going to do it. And I never thought I would, but then I decided I wanted him to want it,
Having
not
older
be
children
forced.
changes
Yeah.
life.
So we've been fortunate there, because I don't know how I would handle it if I really felt like they didn't want to go. But just so you know, like to kind of lead up to that. And by the way, like we're just giving you what we did. It's super important. If you're living the godly life and you've got to understand your children and their situation, because what works for our kids may not work for yours. And you know your kids. With that said, one, we'd always modeled it our whole life, so that's kind of what they knew. Two was, which I thought was super important, I'd say, because that was on my mind for sure, and I know yours. I thought, oh, Lord, they're going to go to college, and now what, right? And so when we got a year-ish plus out, the conversation started shifting towards, look, you're going to go to college, and you've got to own, like, why are you going to church with us? And we've talked to them about it, right, over time, but it's like, you've got to really start making sure you're shifting in your heart and mind, like, you own this, you own your faith if they're not already, and why you do this. Because when you go to college, you're going to be having fun with your friends late on Saturday nights probably, and they're not going to probably go to church, and so what are you going to do? And so I thought early on it was important to start talking to them about it and putting it in their head so I could coach them, right, and give the godly instruction, and then turn it over to the Lord. Like, absolutely, they could have gone to school and never went to church. Fortunately, we were blessed where almost immediately with our girls so far, they were telling us they were trying to figure out where to go to church. So we didn't have to cross that bridge. I'd like to think that was part of the reason, is that we had those conversations and prepared, including, that was really important for them to understand, your friends aren't going to go. In fact, they're going to tell you not to go. I also didn't tie it necessarily to Sunday morning, right? It's like, listen,
That's right.
most schools have ministries. They could be on Wednesday nights, they could be on Thursday nights. Like, there's nowhere in the Bible that says you got to go to
Sydney
Sunday
couldn't
morning
go
church
Sunday
and
mornings.
sit in this type of service. And so I also didn't put boundaries on it. Like, look, you know what, you're 18 years old. Like, you know what you need to do to be in community. Find it. Like, this is how you go about that. This is how we find churches, or we find it. And so it's just instructing them, and thankfully, the Lord has honored that, and it's worked out with our 2 girls. The boy might be a little tougher. We'll see. You'll say it won't be, but I'm the realist.
Hey guys, right here. Hey Todd. Hi.
Sorry.
So as sports parents, is there something that you wish that you would have done differently? Obviously you have high level athletes. Caleb is only 8, and he's in all the sports, but I get like so intense, and then like when he makes an error or whatever, it affects me. And so is there anything that you guys would have done differently throughout their sports journey? Or any advice?
Yeah, so this one was a tough one for me and not, because the reality is, specifically Sydney, not so much John William, and Sophie wasn't into sports. Like, there were seasons where we were missing Sundays. And so I struggled with that just from my own convictions or what have you. With that said, we had parents where, hey, we're not going to play sports because of that. And I didn't think that, I totally respected that. And in some ways, maybe that's the right answer. I just felt like we could find a balance, and for us, the balance was we chose the team when she wanted to go to the highest level, and we knew what that meant from a commitment standpoint. We made sure we found a team, and we did, that was aligned in what we were trying to do. So our coach allowed us to have Sunday morning devotions with the team.
On the field.
Or, or do things like that we felt like would continue her journey and help her to understand you could marry the two. And then also I'd go back to, hey, this is a season where Sunday mornings are going to be a little bit tougher, so we might be more engaged on a Tuesday night, or, I just, especially in this generation, I felt like it couldn't become militant. It's got to be about Sunday morning we're in church. It's got to be about growing our faith, and you can do it in this way as part of your team and within what you've been gifted, and you can also seek out ministry and ways to grow on a Tuesday or a Thursday. So that's how we managed it, if that's your question.
It's about church, but just like as a parent of an athlete, like if you see that, because I am super invested in Caleb's journey just because of my background. Oh, sorry. So is there something that you would have done differently throughout her journey, not just going to church, but just as a parent and her going through it, like certain struggles or whatever the case may be? I don't know if I'm asking it correctly.
I'm trying to so obviously, especially for me as a sports parent, you obviously tend to be too hard. So what would I do different? I would be not so crazy at times, right? Like, she struck out. It's not the end of the world, right? And so there are absolutely the things you hear even from a worldly perspective that have biblical tones, which is, her worth is not in how she did on a weekend. Her worth is not that she's just, in her case, a softball player. And I think we did okay there, but there's so many things I would look back, I was like, gosh, I'd love to do it over again because I would do it better. But not being so hard, not turning their gift into performance, right? And then here's what my miss.
Or worth.
Worth,
or
yeah.
identity.
Here's my miss. Like, she had a bad weekend. Well, as a sports parent, I probably harped on that. No, not probably. I harped on that at times, where that would have been a great opportunity to talk about, hey, God's giving you a gift, but part of that gifting is learning through failures and stuff. That's just examples of missed opportunities because we get too wind up, and whatever their performance is. I mean, your kid may be art or whatever.
Know your kid, too.
Yeah, know your
he
kids
knew
and
how to
know
talk
you.
to Sid about, you did really good with Sid, babe. You're not giving yourself enough
Okay.
credit. Know your kid. Sydney, you could chew her out, and she's like, yes, I know. But some of your kids are more sensitive, and they don't, you might just need, like John William is like, he's never going to tell you he did bad at lacrosse. He's always going to be like, I was amazing. Like, oh, okay. And it's hard when both of us are very realists. We're like, no, you stunk. Because that's why And he knows that about us, so we have to balance like our honesty with his thinking he's the best all the time. So just know your kid, and again, do not make it their identity. He is not Caleb, the baseball player. He is Caleb, the beloved one of Jesus. He just happens to play baseball, you know? And that is one thing Sydney is telling all these little softball players now. This is not who you are. It's not who you are. So their identity cannot be
Well,
hidden.
and I would say that's a gift God gave them. And so I think part of the miss for us as parents, so you've been given a gift. And if you really are that kind of elite person in whatever it is, how are you going to use that gift? Like, why did God give you that gift? I promise you it's not so you can go out there and wow families and crowds. So
Amen.
what are you going to do with that gift? So Sydney, it was like, you know, how are you going to talk to these little girls that are going to come in your life? Because that's the platform you're going to be given, in helping them to see those things.
Yeah. Okay. That's true. That's true. That's a good idea. That's definitely sure.
Hi, my voice is probably going to shake because this makes me nervous.
She's one of our really young moms.
I will say
Love it.
that I was telling Brittany, Satan really made it hard for me to get here this morning, and in the car I was like, not today, like I need to get there. I'm very thankful that you're here, Todd, because so my husband is an alcoholic. He's dealing with addiction right now, and we're living in the same house, but we're separated just because I don't know what to do. But we went to a sermon a couple weeks ago, and it was actually about saving your marriage, and I felt like it was a big sign. And so I've been really diving into the Word and trying to be the best me that He can see as well. And because, like you said, it takes conviction, and I can't force it. I know he has a lot on his plate. He's doing AA. He has a few guy friends that are trying to really invest in him as well. But I have a 2 and a 4-year-old, and I just want to know, when is it time for me to kind of step in? Because I'm trying to just let him do his thing, get on track again with his sobriety and God. I don't really know exactly what my question is. It's more so like, when do I step in and really try to like hold his hand through this and not seem overbearing, or how do I do that without pushing him away? Because I feel like his alcoholism, one, it's addiction, but it's also stress related, and I'm afraid of pushing him over the edge, because I know he has a lot of responsibility on his plate. He knows that there's a lot on the line. If you have any insight, I guess, I really have a direct question. If you just have any insight on the situation.
So I don't really feel qualified. It's just not something that, so a couple comments. One,
Dad.
I want to encourage you because, so my dad, when my mom married him, discovered that he was an alcoholic. I was little. And she prayed for him like it was a battle, right? Because part of that's a battle. Now, so I will tell you, he was delivered from full alcoholism overnight. Like, literally overnight, all through prayer. Now, why that doesn't happen for everybody, I don't know. But I do at least want to encourage you. Like that was something that went on, and he did that for my mom. Now, the other part, I don't know. Like, right, I think all you can do is the submission and the godly love. I do still want to encourage you to, train your children and step into that capacity, unfortunately, but gently. Like, it's not I'm doing this because you're not, I'm making you feel lesser. It's just, that's important in your kids' development, and I think you got to come alongside your husband at where he's at, but keep fighting the prayer battle. Yeah. Beyond that, honestly, I just don't feel unqualified to tell you. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, so thank you.
I feel like I feel like you're doing all the things, girl. You are. You are. All right, I'm going to have Todd pray over us. I know we've gone a little later, but I hope you guys have heard, and I hope that you just, again, let the Lord take what you need and what your family needs, and, shake off anything that you don't. And again, every family's different. All the kids are different. Marriages are different. And just trust God with your family. Trust God with what you're doing. You're here. You're listening. And Todd will be around. He's got to go jump on a call in a little bit. But he's going to be around for a few minutes if you guys want to talk to him anymore. Babe, I'm going to let you just pray for these moms. Because I won't pray, because even like last night, we have this thing, when we pray together, I'm always like, babe, come in, because I'm getting ready to watch Reba or Mama's Family. And I'm like, okay, whose turn is it? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, I think it's my turn. He's like, oh, okay, let me get real comfortable. Let me get real comfortable. In other words, I pray too long. I was good last night.
You were better.
It was better. So they want to leave, so I'll let you pray us out. Okay, babe?
Okay. Lord, we just come to you today, Lord. Just thank you for these moms, Lord. Just thank you for the commitment they have already shown in their house, Lord. That they love you, they want to follow you and seek you, God. Just thank you for their leadership and wherever they need to be, God. We just thank you for this time. Lord, I don't know what resonated with each mom, but there's something that you came to give to each mom today, Lord. So I just pray that would just sink into their lives, Lord, that they would find ways to strengthen their relationship with you, their family's relationship, God. But I pray for their husbands, God. It's such a battle with the enemy, Lord, going after the husbands culturally, and just so many lies that are just resonating so strong, God. So I just pray, Lord, that you would just really start to move in the lives of these women's husbands, Lord. They're faithful to you, God, and I just pray blessings on them, Lord, that they would just see the goodness and the hope they have in you, Lord, just through the signs that they're seeing in their husbands, God. I just thank you for these households. Thank you for the generations that are changing.
Yes, Jesus.
Lord, thank you for this ministry and their leaders, God. Thank you for this sanctuary, for opening the church to the ministry, God. And Lord, we just pray you'd be with them as they go out through the days. Protect their families.
Yes,
Break any strongholds the enemy has, Lord. Just let the light come through so strongly. We just ask it in your name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Love you guys. Go to your small group. Yay, Todd. First and last time here, probably. Should you turn it off, babe?